Hi folks, this is Corey from River Cleaner, and in this video we're going to be discussing some secret tricks for maximizing your search results and revenue for your sales on Amazon.com. Some of the things we'll discuss are actually fairly well-kept secrets that not very many sellers know about. In fact, if you've seen any of these hacks in use out in the wild, it's very possible that those sellers actually learned it from us here. If you have any questions you'd like answered about this video, a link to the Facebook page will be provided at the end and in any links below you might see. Okay, so let's get started. So here we are. This is huge. We're about to discuss some very important tips for increasing your visibility in the mobile space for organic search results and successful advertising. Yeah, notice how I said mobile space? Well, let me tell you why. So, the problem. There are a lot of metrics out there for where and how people are shopping, but the important thing we care about is that more than half of Amazon shoppers are going to be shopping from mobile devices. The problem we run into is that we tend to optimize our layouts and listings on desktop devices while the customer is viewing that content on mobile, which kind of just throws that optimization right out the window. So you want to look at some of the old days, and you might know this trick. You make it look like the product image is kind of like an arrow, and it's pointing up at the product name. And people started doing this maybe around 2008 or so. And since then, just so many people have started doing the same thing. You see it everywhere. What we're going to want to do is use some smarter, newer tricks that make our images stand out from the others in a real and tangible way. So first of all, let's look at these the gray lines separating the three listings here. You can see that these products are all occupying about the same amount of space, more or less. You see how, they just kind of blur together? None of the three products really stands out too much, other than the one we've added a little red arrow here to demonstrate the pointing up to the name. Okay, so we've been given a specific space, a specific amount of, we'll call it real estate, to display our product. Now, I'm going to tell you that we have an opportunity here to double or even triple the amount of real estate that our product takes up, allowing us to stand out and get our product seen and noticed by more people as they browse Amazon. This will help you increase your click-through rate and your sales. Sound good? Good. All right, so again, when we're talking about real estate, we mean the amount of space your product takes up on the page. The space between the two gray lines. This space here. So remember, we're looking at a mobile view here, and you're going to get pretty much the same layout whether you view your listings on a mobile phone or a larger tablet. Now, customers on mobile can access Amazon in one of two ways, either through the Amazon app or through their web browser with Google Chrome, Safari, whatever. An interesting thing to note is that most people actually use the Amazon app to browse. They might not actually complete the purchase on the app. They might shop around, possibly even put the product in the cart, but not complete the purchase until they get home, get on the desktop computer. The statistic that we have is that 70% of these users will shop through the mobile app first, then complete the purchase somewhere else. So back to the real estate here. We're looking at the space we're given. Different devices have all sorts of different resolutions and aspect ratios and whatnot, but the average space we're going to see here for a search result is between 240 and 250 pixels. So these three results are all basically the same level of optimization. They all have reviews. You can see 108. This one only has one review, but it does have a review. None of them are on Amazon Prime, and they have two lines in the title. And each of those things gives them a little bit more real estate than maybe a smaller listing that doesn't have those things. The first one doesn't have a price, but otherwise these are all pretty similar in terms of how optimized they are. So let's talk about the product images. These follow what is usually done with images on Amazon. Everyone tends to use a square image. Like this is, you can see this is actually a perfect square that even the background is kind of gray and not quite as white as everything else. But everyone tends to use a square image. So a typical resolution is 1000 by 1000 or 1500 by 1500 pixels. These are pretty common resolutions, but just note that they're square. If the product doesn't fill up the square, then you get white bordering on the rest of the image. Okay, so the more elements you have, the more space you're going to get. So here on this slide, we have the 10 elements you can use to increase your space, your real estate in your listing. So first, the title. If you have over 35 characters, you get your 2 lines of text, and that increases the size that you're going to get here. Once you go too far, you can see down here at the bottom, there's it just kind of truncates your title. But you still get the space either way. So over 35 characters is good. Hopefully you can get everything inside there without being truncated. Secondly, if you have a Prime listing, that's going to add some space due to the Prime logo. You can see here, just the Prime logo being inserted there into the price. It makes the price bigger. You get the Prime logo. You get a little bit more space there. Okay, so then the next thing you want to do is you limit your quantities. And limiting your quantities actually gives you another 10 pixels here. So there's an example here on the first listing. There's only one left in stock, order soon. So create some scarcity by limiting your inventory, and then we're going to get this line here about how many are left in stock. We discussed that at least one review, that's going to give you another 10 pixels. And the pixels we're talking about here, if this isn't already obvious enough, is this vertical space. It's just going to make your listing bigger, okay? So next, you want to add a recommended age. And even if this doesn't make sense for your product, like you think it's ageless or whatever, and it might be, it's a little bit more information that you can add to the listing, and it gives you just a little bit more real estate. It's just another thing that gives you that much more space to work with, that much bigger of a listing, okay? So more options available is something that you can actually pretty easily control. Even if you're an FBA seller, you can create another listing which is merchant fulfilled with a much higher price so that nobody will buy it, but you still get that bonus real estate from the more options available text getting added down there. See this this one on the bottom, that's popping up over my mouse, of course it is. This last listing on the bottom says more options available. That's an extra line of text, so a little bit more space on the listing. Is it starting to make sense? That's pretty cool, right? All right, so then every promotion that you run gives you a little bit more real estate. Your subscribe and save, and then your coupons and promotions, those are going to give you some more real estate. Sponsored ads give you more real estate because when it's sponsored, you actually get the sponsored ad text thrown in there, and it just makes the listing a little bigger. And then any other badges that you have. The sponsored ads one is a commonly overlooked thing. A lot of times people don't realize their listing actually gets bigger. But if you get that gray sponsored ad text up at the top of your listing, you're going to get a little extra real estate out of that. Okay, so take a look here. This is an ad where someone is really utilizing their space when someone looks at their sponsored ad with that image. This ad is well optimized for the space here, while the second ad below is not. The image on the top looks so much bigger. And you can see both of these ads are doing a lot of those tricks to build up that optimized space. But this is the thing we're going to talk about next, which is that we need these images to fill out all that extra space that we've earned ourselves. So you can see the image on the top looks so much bigger. It almost feels like it just overshadows the second listing. And if you make your image the right way here, Amazon can automatically scale your image according to the space that you have or the space that you've built up with those other tricks. So note that this image is vertical and the product has now been, because it's vertical, the product is zoomed in and cropped to fill that entire space given to it. Where the image below came from a square image, so it's not, you can see on the top and bottom there's all this dead space for this second item. You want to have an opportunity to stand out. So let's take another look with a different ad here. This ad has tons of real estate because of how they managed to optimize the rest of the listing. It has a good title length, Prime logo, more options, all this stuff to give it some really good space. But the image is squared. So this is how it's going to look on mobile. The image is tiny. So the work's been done up to a certain point, but it's a missed opportunity. But let's see how it would look if we'd created a rectangular image, maybe put the product sideways. There you go. Opportunity taken. Thank you, Amazon. And if we submitted that to Amazon, they'd have scaled it up to fill up all that space, just like we see here, and suddenly this product image stands out and can be seen. Yeah, that looks much better. So another thing about these images, Amazon tells you in the style guide to put the images on a white background. Always put them on a clean white background. And there's a good reason for this. You see, this image has pure white space on the right side. It's a square image, but it has pure white space on the right side. So when it gets put into a larger listing, it's able to expand the image up to the top and bottom. And this is why they wanted that white space. It crops it out. The scaling algorithm can detect that empty white space and cleanly crop the image to fill the proper space for these listings. It's helping optimize the listing for you if your image is set up the right way. They're helping you. You just got to do a little work to get it there. So when the image is shown square, if we go back, there we go. When the image is shown square, it looks like this. But if it needs to scale, they can scale it up and they immediately detect that white space and crop it out, filling up the real estate that you've earned yourself with your other optimizations. So one of the mistakes you can make here is not having a pure white background. You can see here this listing has failed to take advantage of this because in the corner we don't actually have pure white. We've kind of graded it up over here in the corner so you can see, but there's the algorithm detects those pixels that aren't pure white down there. It hasn't really been cropped out right. So it's not able to resize the image to take advantage of all that space, and here below the image you've just got a bunch of wasted potential. So try not to do this. If this was a sponsored ad, there would be even more wasted real estate here than we're already seeing. So here's an example of a squared product image that's actually set up properly. So even though it's square, it can still be cropped and go right to fill whatever space it needs to take up all the room in the listing, because you've got pure white all around the product. The product's been cleanly cropped out of whatever background it was shot on. This is well set up. They've probably taken it into Photoshop or GIMP and cleaned it up a little, but the end result is this nice clean image that should do a better job of filling up the real estate it's given as Amazon scales it to the size of the listing. Sometimes, depending on the product, it's not always possible to get a clean rectangular shape out of your image, like with this lemon pod here, but we've still got clean white all around it for the best optimization that we can get. So if you have to go back and dig into your old listings and clean up your old images, we here at River Cleaner are telling you it's definitely worth it. I mean, it is worth it. So the other thing to note is in the Amazon style guide, a lot of people don't actually pay attention. They just use a square because that's kind of what everybody else does. But Amazon actually has a hint in the style guide that they're not even asking you to necessarily do a square. They have a nice hint right here. It's supposed to be at least 500 on the shortest side and 1001 pixels on the long side. So this is really more of an elongated rectangle, and this will fill up that space really nicely. If it has to go back to a square, you've got the white border, so it'll be surrounded by white, so that's not an issue. But it's okay to use a rectangular size like this, a non-square size like this. You just want it to be at least 500, like 501 pixels by 1001. That's a good image size. So this is what you're going to get when you compare those two aspect ratios. You've got the two different kinds of images, right? So we've kind of got two ads. One's well optimized, one's not well optimized. Our not well optimized ad isn't even filling up all the space necessarily with the product because there's all that background area. And if the listing was taller and we had a nice rectangular image, it could fill up more of the space. So the squeeze bottles here are taking up all the space on the left and are just clean and nice, and they really pop. This looks great. So here we have a few more examples with a bunch of bags that we've looked up. bestseller ads and sponsored ads that get the extra real estate. But some of these aren't necessarily using it super well. Over here, though, this sleeping bag on the right with a vertical image is going to do much better getting noticed. It takes up so much more space. You see it. It's the thing that stands out on the page. So here's another example with these bags on the bottom. You can see that the image is scaling properly for the blue bag that kind of looks like the one we were looking at earlier. But if they'd optimized the ad better and gotten more real estate from those tricks that we showed earlier, they'd be able to look more like the two sponsored ads on the bottom that just have this extra real estate, and the image gets a lot more space to scale up. You can see the difference. You can see what a difference it makes to really look at these and take a look at how your image is scaling up on your listing. So hopefully this is clear enough for you guys, getting your real estate up, getting your images to properly scale to that real estate. These things are really going to boost your sales. So go optimize your listings. Optimize them for mobile, especially. Get as much real estate as you can and change your product photos and fill up that hard-earned real estate that you just spent your time getting. So that's going to be all for this video. Make sure to hit us up on our Facebook page if you have any questions or if you want to learn more about anything we've discussed here. Once again, I'm Corey for River Cleaner, and good luck selling.